Good evening, everybody. Papa West, Jacob West here, and I am excited to announce something new, a new show to TMG Entertainment. TMG takes the field. If you know anything about TMG, we're all about movies, whether it's just talking about movies, debate, trivia, we do it all, which is great, but we want some difference. We want some new stuff. We want some. Can't think of the word, but you know what I mean. You know exactly what I mean. We want to add a little bit of flavor to the channel, and so I thought, what better than to unveil a new show all about sports? New show, TMG takes the field. We're going to talk all about sports. NBA, MLB, college, both football, basketball, soccer, WNBA. I'm sure we'll talk about that. If it's a sport, we'll talk about it. The only thing is we're going to try to stay away from NFL as best as we can, because we do also have the show Inside the Horseshoe, which is on its own channel but does mainly focus on NFL. I'll talk about it a little bit here, but I'm not going to have like an exhaustive NFL show because we do already have that. This is mainly for every other sport to get some attention, and kind of talk about what all's going on everywhere else. So with that, I'm always going to start off the show with breaking news. Like I said, we are kind of going to talk about NFL, but not a lot. I do have to say, Texans have officially announced Tyrod Taylor as their starting quarterback for week number 1. Now, had you been following the Houston Texans anytime this offseason, you know they're a complete dumpster fire. But they've had a quarterback on their team for a while known as Deshaun Watson. He's still on the team. He's going to be backing up now, so what does that mean? I don't know. He's probably going to get traded. I know the Dolphins have been talked about a lot, Broncos. Tons of teams that could use a good quarterback like Deshaun. Other stuff, Brazil legend Pele, the amazing soccer player, had a tumor removed from his colon. So Pele, we wish you all the best of luck as you heal up from that surgery. Thankfully, we were able to find it, and it wasn't massive, which is always good. And that's really all I have as far as huge breaking news. So now, let's just go into it. We're going to go and start off just with some NBA news. Not a lot because we are currently in the off season. We did finish up the season a couple months ago. Draft happened, so now it's just a bunch of free agency stuff. I'm going to go and start off with the Lakers of Los Angeles. They had a pretty good team. Of course, LeBron, Anthony Davis are there. They've had a very busy offseason. Of course, their biggest signing was trading to get Russell Westbrook from the Washington Wizards. They also re-signed Rajon Rondo, who left the team last year. They picked up Dwight Howard, Trevor Ariza, Kent Bazemore, along with a couple others. So they've had a really good team. Just a couple days ago, it was announced that they will be adding former Clipper, former Net, former Piston, DeAndre Jordan. He is expected to be bought out of his contract with Detroit, and then he is supposed to sign with Los Angeles, which is very scary. Los Angeles already had a great team. They only finished 7th this last season, so they were able to pick up quite a bit of players to make them better. And then they just picked up DeAndre Jordan, who's probably not going to start at center, but is definitely a good backup at center. That's very scary. The Lakers are looking like the team to beat in the West. which really they were 2 years ago too. Whenever they had the tournament during COVID, they were the number one seed. They were the best team in the NBA that year until it was ended too soon, and then they ended up winning it all that year. This last season wasn't the greatest, but it looks like they're going to be back up to the top, unfortunately. Other news, we have one super team forming in the West. We have to have a super team forming in the East. The Nets, who already have Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant. I didn't write that down. Who else do they have? James Harden. I didn't forget James Harden. So they are planning on signing Paul Millsap to be a center for them, which is scary. But then also, LaMarcus Aldridge is returning from retirement. A couple years ago, he had to step away from the NBA due to heart concerns. He has been cleared, so congratulations on being able to play basketball again. He is coming back and re-signing with the Nets. So it's looking like that's going to be the championship the next couple years. We'll see if a couple other teams can fix that. Hopefully. I'm a Mavericks fan, so I really hope Luka can do some magic and be Dirk Nowitzki 2.0 and ruin some super teams. We'll see. Again, there's not a lot going on in the NBA right now. If there's anything else that you would like to talk about, please throw it in the comments, and I will talk about it next week, along with some other NBA news. Next thing I want to move on is to the FIFA World Cup. We are in the middle of our qualifiers right now. So every continent is having their tournaments going on. And so I just want to highlight just a couple games that have been going on. The USA played Canada and tied 1-1. USA has now had 2 games in the World Cup qualifiers that they have not won, which is not great because everyone wants to see their country make it to the World Cup. America is no exception to that rule, even if we're not huge soccer fans. I'm a huge soccer fan and would love to see them, so hopefully we'll be able to turn that around and start getting some wins so we can make it to the tournament, which should be next year. Also in the CONCACAF, which is North America's tournament, Mexico did beat Costa Rica 1-0. So Mexico looking like they're probably going to be the first North American team to make it to the World Cup. Hopefully we can turn it around, and if not, beat them, be second. Because usually 3-4 countries, or usually 3 from North America will make it to the tournament. So we just want to make sure we're on there. Also going on to Europe, we have several games from there. England beat Andorra 4-0. England, of course, just recently had a chance to win the Euro and did not win. They made it all the way to the final and lost to Italy. But it looks like it's coming home. Hopefully they can make it to the World Cup and do something they haven't done since 1968, which is win it all. Other games, Switzerland and Italy being the team that beat England in the Euro Championship, both tied 0-0 or 0-0, as most people like to say in the soccer world. Belgium beat Czech Republic 3-0. Belgium being one of the powerhouses. Most people thought they were going to win the Euro, so they are a favorite this year. Germany beat Armenia 6-0. So definitely showed that they belong in the World Cup, whereas Armenia doesn't. Spain beat Georgia 4-0. Not Georgia the state. There is a country called Georgia, in case you are wondering. And then going on to South America, Uruguay beat Bolivia 4-2. Uruguay is that scary sleeper team. They won like the very first ever World Cup. They've won 2 or 3, I believe. And so they're always, you never think of them as the best team, especially when you think of South America. You always think of Brazil and Argentina, and Uruguay is always up there. So watch out for them. They could always make a run. And then we also have Brazil versus Argentina. The match was stopped after 4 minutes. It's not quite known exactly why. Were there health concerns with COVID going around? We don't know. There was nothing officially stated. We just know that very soon after it started, it was stopped. We will follow around the World Cup qualifiers as they continue. And then once the actual World Cup happens, you can guarantee we'll be following that as well. Next, I want to bring up the MLB, Major League Baseball. We are in the final month of the regular season. I believe it's September 30th is the final day until we get into October, which is the playoffs. We have a lot of really important series coming up. I know Blue Jays and Yankees are playing right now, which both teams are really fighting for that wild card. If they can't make it to being number one in the AL East, they're definitely wanting to get that first wild card spot. And it would really be good to either get that or the second wild card spot. You also have the Giants and Rockies, Rays, Red Sox, Phillies, Brewers, Reds, Cubs, which is one that no one's talking about, which they should. Mariners, Astros, and then Rangers and Angels going into series right now that are really important. When you have, it's like, 160 game seasons, you think you can take some games off. Well, once you start getting towards that end of the year, it is a race to the playoffs. And I do want to bring up the standings right now. And I'm also going to give a prediction who I think is going to win each division, who I think the two wild cards are going to be. And what the heck, I'll give playoff and World Series predictions also, because why not? So right now, we're going to start off with the American League. In the AL East, right now, Tampa Bay is winning the division with an 86-51 record. Second place, 7.5 games behind, is the New York Yankees at 78-58. Boston right behind them at 79-60, only a half a game difference there. And then the Blue Jays are in fourth. Right now they're at 73-62. Yes, there are more teams in the division. They really don't have a chance to make the wild card, let alone win the division. So we're not going to talk about everyone. But I do think it's going to be tough for Tampa Bay to lose that division. They do have a really good team this year. They've had a really good team past couple years. And then as far as Yankees right now have the number one wild card spot. Boston is right behind them. And then the Blue Jays are about 5 games back from the Yankees to get that number one wild card spot. So I definitely see Tampa Bay staying with winning the division. They do have a really good team this year. And it's hard to lose 8 games and the Yankees win 8 games for the Yankees to be able to make that up. So yeah, I do think Tampa Bay is gonna win this one this year. And then I'll talk about wild cards afterwards. Next, we're going to move on to the Central Division. This one we're not going to spend a lot of time on. Right now, the Chicago White Sox are sitting pretty at 79-58. 10 games behind them is the Cleveland Guardians, I believe they're now called. They are sitting at 68-66. So it's a 10-game lead that Chicago has. Then you have the Detroit Tigers, 14.5 games back. White Sox are sitting pretty at that number one spot right now. It's going to be tough for Cleveland to be able to storm up. I don't foresee them being able to. So I think the White Sox are going to win their division. Next, we're moving on to the West. Houston, the Astros or Asterix, whatever you want to call them. Right now they're sitting at 79-57. 4.5 games behind them. This was a huge surprise to me. You have the Seattle Mariners, a team that has never been good since really ever, especially when Ichiro left. They are sitting at 4.5 games back, 75-62. Team really has come out of nowhere. They're usually last place. They're second place in the division right now. 1 game back from them, you have the Oakland Athletics, who this could be their last year in Oakland. They're looking at moving. Las Vegas has been talked about a lot for them to move to. We'll see where they end up, if they end up anywhere outside of Oakland. They're at 74-63. And then 11.5 games back, you do have the Los Angeles Angels sitting at 68-69. And then, of course, the Texas Rangers are in last place of that division. I'm from Texas. I have a lot of friends who are Rangers fans. I'm sorry, guys. So this is a very interesting spot because 3 teams still very much in it. 5.5 games separate the 3. So this is going to be one of those that's going to be very fun to watch, especially because, and let me pull up, I'm pretty sure most of those are in series right now. The Astros are taking on the Mariners. So whoever wins those games, that's huge implications of being first up. And then I know I already said it, or I might not have said it. Oakland, it looks like they are off today, and tomorrow, they'll be starting off a series with the White Sox. So that's going to be a pretty tough series coming up. Looks like they have a 3-game series with them and then 3 games with the Rangers. So as far as who's going to win that, I'm really hopeful for the Athletics. And I just said, they're in that 3-game series with the White Sox. Then they have the Rangers. It's going to be a tough series right there. But hopefully that Houston-Seattle series, they can make up some ground right there, especially if Seattle is able to either win the series or even sweep the series. That'd be really helpful for the Athletics. But biggest thing, you can't worry about the other teams. You just have to win your games. So Athletics, just win your game and you'll be good. So I'm really pushing for the Athletics. I think they will pull it out and win the division. And then as far as wild cards go, right now New York has the first wild card spot. Again, Boston is right behind them at the half a game. Then you have Seattle, Oakland, the Blue Jays, and then Cleveland is right behind. So it is a very close race in that wild card spot. And remember, 2 teams go. So really hoping, these teams are really hoping they can at least get that second place. I do foresee it being Houston and New York. I think New York will have, I think Houston will have the number 1 seed. New York will be number 2. So they'll have that 1 game in Houston. Of course, I'm a Yankee fan. They've had a very good second half of the season, especially with all those trades that they picked up to really boost their offense. I do foresee New York pulling it out, which now takes us to the playoffs. I do think Tampa Bay will finish number 1, then Chicago, and then Oakland. So you'll see Tampa Bay taking on New York in the first round, and then Chicago taking on Oakland. I would love to say the Yankees, but Tampa Bay has been great this year. They've been great against the Yankees. So I do see Tampa Bay winning that series, then moving on to the league championship. And then as far as Chicago and Oakland, if this is the matchup that happens, I think that'll be an interesting one. I do like Oakland's players a little bit better. I do think they do have a little bit better team. So I think Oakland, if they can win the division, they can win that series. And so we'd see Tampa Bay versus Oakland in the league championship series, where it's really tough to vote against Tampa Bay. They do have a very good team this year. So I do think Tampa Bay will win the American League Series and will go on into the World Series representing the American League. Now we're going to move on to the National League. Right now in the East, very close race between the three teams that are still in it. Right now you have the Atlanta Braves sitting at 72 and 64. Philadelphia Phillies right behind them by 2 games, 70 to 66. And then the Mets about 3.5 games behind Atlanta, 69 wins, 68 losses. So this has been a very interesting division. You do have the Braves. They had their star outfielder Acuna, who got injured towards the beginning of the season, kind of like that first quarter, second quarter split. Had that season-ending injury. Everyone thought the Braves were going to be done, and they have really been able to surprise. I know they did make a couple plays during the right before the trade deadline to help build their roster, and they've always had a great infield. I want to say this is the first team, and I don't know how long, that every single infielder has hit 30-plus home runs in a season. So this is a very good team. It's just hoping that they can finish out as strong as their middle of the season has been. I do think they have the best roster of any of the three teams. I do think they're going to hold on and win the division. And then Phillies and Mets, we'll see if they make the wild card. We'll get to that spot here in a second. As far as the NL Central goes, this is just like the American League Central. Right now you have the Milwaukee Brewers, 84 to 54. They do have the third best record in baseball right now. They have had a tremendously improved season than they had the season before. Yelich has had a much better season than he had the season before. Second place, you have the Cincinnati Reds, 73 and 65. Nick Castellanos. I have him on my fantasy baseball team. He has done well for me. He has done really well for the Reds. But they are 11 games behind the Brewers right now at the moment at 73 and 65. And then you have the St. Louis Cardinals, 13 and a half games back at 69 wins, 66 losses. I do think the Brewers, they have a great buffer right now. I'm pretty sure they're going to be able to hold it out and end up winning the division. And hopefully the Reds can at least get some ground up to get into that wild card spot. Next, we're going to move into the West. The Giants, with the best record in baseball at the moment, 87 wins, 50 losses. Right behind them, 1 game back, the Dodgers are at 86-51. And then the Padres, 14 games back, 73-64. This is, as far as the division goes, this is really going to come down to the Giants and Dodgers. These are easily the 2 best teams in baseball. You might be able to throw Tampa Bay in there, but I'm not quite ready to, just because Dodgers have been pretty consistent with being up there. I mean, the last 3-4 seasons they've been the number 1 seed, and then the Giants, they usually have like every other year. Granted, they've had a little bit. They've taken a little break from that. But they do have a generally easy schedule coming up. They do have 3 games up against the Rockies. They have the Cubs, Padres, Braves, going to the Padres again. So they do have 3 series kind of in the middle of the last month that are going to be tough, that they can easily split. But then they finish up against the Diamondbacks and the Rockies, which means they're done playing the Dodgers. Unless there's a tie, which I'm pretty sure they can find a tiebreaker. As far as the Dodgers go, they have just started that series against the Cardinals. Then they have the Padres, Diamondbacks, Reds, Diamondbacks, Padres, and Rockies. So very similar, very similar series coming up for both teams. I do like the Dodgers just a little bit more. I think they do have a little bit easier of a road than the Giants do, because of what they're only playing the Padres once. Oh, they play them twice. So they both have very, very similar series coming up. Actually, I just looked at it. They have the Cubs. They have the Braves also. So I do think this is going to be a very, very close race. I would lean just a little bit more towards the Dodgers. I do think they have the better roster, but we'll see as the season goes. I just favor them a little bit better. If you look at their back at the Giants, I just think they have a little bit easier of a road to get to than the Giants, even though they have a very similar end of the season. And then the Padres at 73-64. Fernando Tatis has been riddled with injuries. I know, because he is also on my fantasy league. I'm glad to see that they have had a very good season, even with all the injury struggles that they have had. And I know there was one point just a couple weeks ago, Tatis was recovering from an injury, and they were thinking about just keeping him out for the rest of the season, not to aggravate it anymore. And they ended up, because they do have a shot at that wild card, they ended up keeping him. They put him in at outfield for a game, and then brought him back in at shortstop. But I don't think that they can catch up on any of that ground. I do think that they will finish third in that division. So I have Braves, Brewers, and Dodgers as my 3 division winners in the National League. As far as wild cards go, whoever is in second place of the West is definitely going to be the number 1 wild card. So right now I have the Giants being the second wild card. And then you have Reds and Padres, both pretty much tied. I think Padres have a half a game above the Reds. Phillies, Mets, and Cardinals right behind, at about a 4 games behind. I do think that the Reds, and I'm just going to check schedules because I should have done it, but I didn't. So Padres, again, they're starting off. They start off tomorrow, or it would really be today, whenever that series starts, depending on from the time of recording. They have 2 games against the Angels, Dodgers, Giants, Cardinals, Giants, Braves, and Dodgers to finish off. So they are going to have a very tough schedule coming up. And then as far as the Reds go, because I do foresee it coming down to the 2 of them, they have the Cubs, Cardinals, Pirates, Dodgers, Pirates, Nationals, and then finishing up with the White Sox. The Dodgers are going to be a tough series. The Cardinals might be a fun series because both teams are really fighting for that last wild card spot. And then ending off with the White Sox. Again, I do think the White Sox will have a really nice lead in the division. So you don't think that they're going to be playing as heavily as the Reds are, especially with the Reds really wanting that last spot. But they have the Cubs. they have the Cardinals, they have the Pirates, 6 games against the Pirates, and then the Nationals. They do have a pretty easy end of the season, especially those last 4 series. You have Pirates, Dodgers, Pirates, Nationals. They really have a favorable season. So definitely Giants will be the number one. Reds, I do think, will end up getting the second wildcard spot, which brings us to the Reds versus the Giants traveling to San Francisco for that 1-game playoff. I do think the Giants, even though the Reds will probably be red hot, I do think the Giants will win it, which brings us a very interesting playoff scenario because the Dodgers will more than likely be number one. And then you'll have the Brewers, Braves, and Giants. So you'll have the Dodgers versus the Giants. Huge rivalry right there to start off the playoffs. I do think the Giants will be a little upset that the Dodgers required them to play in the wild card game. So look to see that going all the way. That'll be a very tough series. I'd lean a little bit more towards the Giants. And then you have the Brewers against the Braves. I would have to go with the Brewers on that one. So we'll see Brewers and Giants in the National League Championship Series. I'd give it to the Giants. And then you'll see the Giants taking on the Tampa Bay Rays. Giants win it all, win the World Series. They used to win. It was every even year for a while. Took a break, and now they're going to start every odd year. So this is going to be a dynasty. This will be the team to beat for a while. But only on odd years, which 2021, it's a pretty odd year. And again, next couple of weeks, we'll kind of see where everyone's sitting at, how my predictions have been going. And if you have any predictions, leave them in the comments. I'm sure I'll find out and what the most popular playoff race is, what everyone thinks it will be, and then we'll just go from there. Next, I do want to talk about the NCAA. College football is back this last weekend. Every team had their season opener with fans back in. We had some wild games. We had some very close, almost upsets. We had some slobber knockers, some very close wins, some great offensive performances, some great defensive performances, and of course, it's college football. Technically, week 1. Last week was like a half a week. Not everyone played. No one played. But you generally get that first week some crazy, very close upsets. I'm not going to talk about every single game that happened because that would be crazy, but I will talk about just some of the major ones. First, I want to talk about it happened Thursday night. Ohio State beating Minnesota 45-31 in a huge Big Ten game. Ohio State just lost their starting quarterback, Justin Fields, who ended up going to the NFL. So some people kind of saying, hey, is this still going to be the same Ohio State team? They always find a way. They were able to beat out Minnesota in a pretty close game, 45-31. Next, and I believe that was the same day, we did have our first upset. Virginia beating North Carolina in another big ACC game. And that's one great thing about college football is really every game matters, especially when you're playing your conference opponents. The non-conference games, if you have them, they're not always super, super important. You always want to win because, of course, everyone wants to go to the college football playoffs. And it's a lot easier to be undefeated and make it than have one loss and make it. But North Carolina getting beat out by Virginia 17-10. North Carolina ranked number 10 in the nation at the moment. By the time of this, while I'm recording this, that's definitely going to fall. Maybe we'll see if they stay in the top 25. Probably not. Virginia will probably bump up pretty high too. And those were all the games I wanted to talk about as far as Thursday, Friday games. Saturday, of course, the big day for college football. Oklahoma, the number 2 ranked team in the nation at the moment, survived a very close game against Tulane. Tulane was up 14-7 at the beginning of it. Then Oklahoma was able to rally to get that 40-14 lead, and then Tulane started to rally, getting up to 30, getting 5 points away from winning it. Oklahoma just able to survive that one. Penn State versus Wisconsin. Both teams ranked. Penn State at number 19, Wisconsin at number 12. Huge Big Ten matchup. This was a very, very close game. Penn State able to hold out 16 to Wisconsin's 10. I'm just going to say this right now. Watch out for Penn State's defense. I realize Big Ten doesn't always have the best offenses, but they had 2 blocked field goals, a couple interceptions, fumbles. They have a very good defense this year, which they generally do have one of the better ones in the Big Ten. Penn State could be a dark horse and win that division. Next, Oregon took on Fresno State. Oregon, the number 11 seed. Another very close fight. Oregon winning 31-24, which a lot of people thought this would be close because Oregon does have a big matchup coming up next week, which I forgot to write down, so I'll find out real quick what that is. Gotta go back to week 2. Yeah, they have Ohio State coming up Saturday the 11th. So yeah, a lot of people were thinking, hey, maybe they're overlooking Fresno State. They're looking forward to taking on Ohio State, which you never know. Of course, people are rusty. They also had their big defensive end, Thibodeau. He left pretty much beginning of the game. Had a lower leg injury. I don't believe came back. He should be good for that Ohio State game. That'll be another fun one to watch. Alabama, the number 1 team, they lost Justin Hurts, who went to Oregon. They had Tua Tagovailoa. He goes to the NFL. Mac Jones took his place. He just went to the NFL. Also named a starter. So who is going to be the new Alabama quarterback? Bryce Young led Alabama 44-13 over the number 14 ranked Miami. This was a very one-sided game. Every time I look back, we were doing the TMG Geek for All. I would look back because I had the game on, and Miami was just looking horrible. Alabama kept adding to that lead, which, everyone hates the Patriots in the NFL. A lot of people hate Alabama. They're a very good team. Nick Saban smiled at the end of the game, which is always weird to see. But Alabama does look like they're going to be the team to beat again this year, like they have been just about every single year. Miami, they had a good team a couple of years ago where they were bringing out the turnover chain on their pretty nasty defense. Has kind of fallen from grace a little bit. Still, because they're Miami, they've always been ranked highly. This doesn't look like it's going to be a good year for Miami. But they did play one of the best teams in the nation, Alabama. So maybe they can turn that around and win the ACC, because the ACC is not looking super, super great this year. Next game, another Big Ten matchup. It's a very interesting matchup. You have the number 17 Indiana taking on the number 18 Iowa. Iowa able to get, I believe it was 3 interceptions. Against Indiana's quarterback, they were able to turn the ball over very effectively as they win 34-6. Another huge matchup. In fact, this was the College Game Day matchup. I have the number 3 Clemson taking on number 5 Georgia in an amazing game for defenses. Georgia was able to win 10-3. Of course, the only touchdown came on an interception return that they were able to return all the way. Which a lot of people, when you think of SEC football, you think of punch in the face, fantastic defenses, and then Clemson has always had a good defense also. That's exactly what you were going to look for in this game. That's exactly what this game delivered. Hoping there'd be more points, which both teams were able to not really block a kick, but miss a kick. So both teams getting turnovers. This was a pretty entertaining match, or an entertaining game. And the last 2 games Saturday night that I want to talk about, both upsets. Washington, the number 20 seed, took on Montana, the state right above me. Montana was able to get the win 13-7, and then UCLA taking on the number 16 LSU. UCLA winning that 38-27. Which reports came out that afterwards UCLA was not surprised that they won. Chip Kelly, I'm an Eagles fan, so you don't want to hear my opinion about the man as an NFL coach. You probably know, since I said I'm an Eagles fan. But he is always able to do some wonders in college football. UCLA last couple of years has had not a great team, but one of those middle of the road, able to get you to a bowl game teams. So maybe watch out for them here in the next couple of years. This could be the year that they make a run for it. And then game from last night, Sunday night, Notre Dame, number 9 seed, taking on Florida State. Florida State, who has always been a great ACC team, just since they lost Jameis, the team has not been great like it used to. Able to take Notre Dame 38-38 into overtime. Unfortunately, just not able to keep that momentum in overtime. Notre Dame ended up winning in overtime 41-38. But still, this isn't knocking Florida State by any means. Florida State could still make a run and win the ACC. Clemson definitely didn't look as good offensively as they had before. When you lose Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne, your 2 big offensive weapons, it's going to be hard to replace them. So maybe look out. There could be a new team to beat in the ACC. But we'll see here in the next couple of weeks. Couple performances that I want to talk about. Because they do hand out this nice trophy at the end of the year called the Heisman Trophy. One person who will definitely not be in consideration for the Heisman, but had an amazing game Saturday night, the Presbyterian quarterback Ren Heffley. This gentleman used to go to Michigan, but transferred to go to Presbyterian University. He went 38 for 50 for 538 yards. And an FCS record 10 touchdowns, as his team was able to take a no-name college that I just saw abbreviations for, and I'm like, I'm not looking out to see who they beat. A record-setting game for Ren Heffley. He is a pretty good quarterback. I mean, he went to Michigan, didn't start for Michigan, but To be able to get a scholarship for a Big Ten school at that position, you have to be good. So it'd be interesting to see if he has a tremendously better season than Michigan's quarterback, and they'll be like, we should have held on to this guy. Bryce Young, the Alabama quarterback, threw for 344 yards and 4 touchdowns, both of which were records for a quarterback from the University of Alabama playing in their first game ever, which when you sit behind Mac Jones, Tua Tagovailoa, you're not going to get a lot of plays in. So his first career start, 344 yards, 4 touchdowns, just destroying Miami. Definitely bumping himself up to consideration for the Heisman Trophy. Back when the end of the year happens, they'll definitely be looking at this game. Spencer Radler, Oklahoma quarterback, threw for 304 yards and a touchdown. He did have 2 interceptions. So having the 1 touchdown to 2 interception ratio is definitely going to hurt him, especially against Tulane. But one nice thing about the Big Ten or the Big 12, they don't have defenses. Couple teams there have good defenses, but he's going to have those 300-plus yard games. Sure, he'll get multiple touchdowns, which he ran for 1, I believe. So he did kind of have multiple touchdowns. Another quarterback, Desmond Ritter. He's the quarterback of Cincinnati. Cincinnati being one of those teams that just because they're in a smaller conference has never gotten the consideration that they should have. They've always had a great team. Desmond Ritter at quarterback threw for 295 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception as they took on Miami of Ohio, beating them 49-14. But then also their running back, Jerome Ford, ran for 120 yards and 1 touchdown. So look out for the Cincinnati offense. 2 great players with Ritter and Ford. Couple other running backs that I want to talk about. Tyler Goodson. He is the Iowa running back, really the best part of that offense. Ran for 99 yards and a touchdown. And then Anthony Richardson, the Florida running back, ran for 160 yards and a touchdown as they beat Florida Atlantic. I am a big TCU fan, so I would be ashamed of myself if I did not talk about Max Duggan, throwing for 270 yards for a touchdown and an interception, but also having 2 rushes for 9 yards and a touchdown as TCU was able to beat Duquesne like 40-3. Couple other things I want to talk about with NCAA. Everyone knows Oklahoma and Texas are moving on to the SEC. We don't know exactly when, whether they'll finish out their contract or just after the season decide to move over. But with that, Big 10 or Big 12 is definitely looking to get some schools to join them. So far, biggest names that have applied to join the Big 12. Houston, the University of Houston has applied. BYU, Cincinnati, which we just talked about, and then UCF, University of Central Florida, which everyone should know with Scott Frost a couple years ago had that undefeated season and claimed to be the national champions because they were able to go undefeated, just missed out in the college football playoffs. And Cincinnati, of course, has had the last couple of years. I believe they had a loss, not last year, but the year before, but it was a very close game. So both those schools wanting to be in a bigger conference, just to have the higher stakes games to hopefully get consideration if they're able to pull out an undefeated season like they have done before. But the thing that I want to talk about, as you can see from the thumbnail, the University of South Carolina. Was this legal, what they did? Yes, it was. For those who do not know, their starting quarterback, Luke Doty, during practice a couple weeks ago, injured his left foot and would not be able to play their week 1 matchup as they took on no-name college Eastern Illinois. Thankfully, it wasn't a huge injury, so they are taking on East Carolina next week. He should be good to go. But when your starting quarterback gets hurt, you have to have a second-string quarterback. And that's where Zeb Nolan comes in. Now, if any of you know his name, you know the story. If you don't know his name, Zeb Nolan was a backup for Trey Lance at North Dakota State. He was also a backup for Bryce Purdy at Iowa State. But he just signed on to South Carolina as their graduate coach assistant. So he graduated college, but he's still in the graduate school, so he's not fully graduated. But he signed on to the school to be one of their assistant coaches. But because he was technically eligible to play a college football season, they named him starting quarterback as South Carolina took on Eastern Illinois. And then Zeb Nolan with a fantastic game, 121 yards, not a ton of yards, but 4 touchdowns as they won 46-0. Yes, it was 100% legal what they did. Might have been a little bit questionable because I don't know why they didn't put in their second-string quarterback to start for them. Because really, any team can beat Eastern Illinois University, especially when you're in the SEC, like South Carolina is. So yeah, not illegal, kind of questionable in my opinion, but he did have a great game, which is something he really wasn't able to do at either Iowa State or North Dakota State because he was always the backup. But it does look like Luke Doty will make the start for South Carolina in week number 2 as they take on Eastern Carolina. And then sure he'll be the starter for the remainder of the season as Zeb Nolan gets the clipboard back and then retakes his coaching roles. But for that, this has been the first show of TMG Takes the Field. Please, if you liked it, click that little thumbs up button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, we do a lot of cool stuff, especially in the world of movies. We do have our weekly shows. Colton Roberts has the Supernova Show, where they talk about all the geek stuff, Star Wars, MCU, Lord of the Rings, all superhero, all geeky stuff you got beat up for in school. He talks about a lot of that stuff. And then RN Knoll does have TMG After Dark every Saturday, just talking about random news, reviewing movies that have just come out. And then we do also have Movie Battlegrounds, which is our movie debate league, which you'll see me compete in, you'll see me judge, you'll see me host. Always good fun that happens with those. So please, if you're not subscribed, if you like sports and movies, you'll love this channel. Please leave a like, leave comments. Who do you think is going to win in the MLB? We can go ahead and start doing NBA predictions. That season is right around the corner towards the end of October. And then also some of your surprise performances in the NCAA because college football is back. Who do you think is going to win the national championship? I imagine here in the next couple of weeks we'll start as we see how every team is doing with replacing their players who have graduated and either gone on to the NFL or gone on into their future endeavors with whatever that is. As we start seeing what teams are actually like, we'll start doing predictions on who wins what conference and then who's going to make it to the playoffs. But I have been 38th favorite dad in the family community, Papa West, Jacob West. Thank you so much for watching. Y'all have a good one.